7 months ago, I found out that my wife was cheating on me with a man twice my age. Just like that, 8 years of my life were reduced to nothing, completely wasted. At the time, I was 31 and she was 33. The guy she was sneaking around with, let's just call him her drill partner, was pushing 50. I didn't go looking for the affair. I stumbled upon it purely by chance. Right place, right time. I had been out of town for work and wasn't supposed to be back until the following day. But when things wrapped up ahead of schedule, I figured I'd surprise her by coming home early. Instead of calling to let her know, I thought it'd be nice to just show up unannounced. While driving back, I noticed my gas was running low, so I took the next exit to fill up. For reference, this stop was about 12 miles from our house. After fueling up, I got back on the road, but getting back onto the highway was slow going. Every intersection had either a traffic light or a stop sign, and the traffic was crawling. As I sat at a four-way stop, waiting for my turn to go, something caught my eye. Off to the side, on a small street, I spotted a familiar car pulling out onto the road. My wife's car. For a moment, I thought I was imagining things. Maybe it was just a similar model. But no, there was no mistaking it. That was definitely her car, and she was heading in the same direction I was. My stomach clenched. What the hell was she doing here? We had talked just a few hours earlier, and she never mentioned anything about being in this part of town. Something wasn't adding up. I grabbed my phone and called her. It rang 4 times before she finally answered. When she did, her voice sounded hurried, almost like she was out of breath. "Hey," she said, her tone oddly shaky. "What are you up to?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. There was a pause, just a beat too long, before she replied, "Oh, I was just about to call you." I frowned. "Yeah? Where are you?" I just had to run a quick errand," she said, her voice still carrying that weird edge. I swallowed down the uneasy feeling creeping up my spine. "My meetings ended early," I told her. "I'm on my way home." She sounded genuinely happy to hear that, immediately asking when I'd get there, like she was already at the house, waiting for me. I told her I'd be home in about 15 minutes. As we talked, I could hear the sound of traffic in the background. She was still driving. "Where are you headed?" I asked casually. There was another tiny pause before she answered, "Oh, just going to the store." Something about the hesitation in her voice made my gut tighten. "Which one?" "The one closest to home," she answered a little too quickly. That was a lie. I could see her car just up ahead, merging onto the highway. The store she claimed to be going to was nowhere near where she was. There was no reason for her to be this far out if she was just running a quick errand near the house. At that moment, I knew. Either she was cheating or she was involved in something shady. Because if there was nothing to hide, why would she lie? I thought about confronting her right then and there, but instead, I decided to play along. If she was gonna lie, I wanted to see how deep the rabbit hole went. "Great," I said smoothly. "I'll meet you there. Maybe we can grab dinner afterward." The brief silence on the other end of the line told me she hadn't expected that. When she finally spoke, her voice was overly cheerful. "That sounds great." I smirked. She was trying way too hard. Keeping my tone casual, I added, "I just passed the rest area." That rest area was right behind her. For a second, nothing happened. Then suddenly, she floored it. Her car shot forward, weaving through traffic like a bat out of hell. I let out a slow breath, my fingers tightening around the wheel. Yeah, she knew. She knew she had been caught, and now she was running, probably thinking, "Damn, that was close." By the time I pulled into the parking lot, she was already there, standing next to her car. As I parked, I watched her check her reflection in a compact mirror, adjusting her hair, smoothing out her clothes. She was trying to look relaxed, but the tension in her shoulders gave her away. Inside the store, she turned to me. "I need to use the restroom." I nodded. "Me too." Her expression flickered, just for a split second, but she forced a smile and walked off. I finished up in a few minutes and stepped outside to wait for her. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 15. She still hadn't come out. When she finally emerged, I smirked. I was about to send in a search party. She let out a light laugh, waving it off. Sorry, had to go number 2. I gave a small nod, pretending to buy it. But I knew better. The whole time she was in there, I could hear the sink running. She hadn't been using the restroom. She was cleaning herself up, probably scrubbing away the smell of whatever or whoever she had just been with. We finished shopping and ended up grabbing some prepared food from the store instead of going out. I kept my expression neutral, but my mind was racing, replaying everything over and over. When we sat down to eat at home, I casually asked, "So, how was your day?" Without hesitation, she said, "Nothing special. Just work, then straight home." Straight home. Yeah, right. I tightened my grip on my fork. Every new lie that slipped out of her mouth made my blood boil, but I forced myself to keep my cool. If I confronted her without solid, undeniable proof, she'd just twist everything around, gaslight me, and make me feel like I was losing my mind. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my thoughts racing. Sleep wasn't even an option. Meanwhile, she was completely knocked out, breathing steadily like she didn't have a single worry in the world. It blew my mind how easy it was for her. You'd think she'd be restless, afraid of slipping up, nervous about getting caught. But no, she was perfectly at ease while I lay there, wide awake, trying to make sense of it all. The next evening, while she was in the kitchen making dinner, I decided to check her phone. Nothing. No suspicious texts, no strange calls. I logged into our cell phone account and checked our records. Then I pulled up our credit card statements. Again, nothing out of the ordinary. For a brief moment, I actually felt relieved. Maybe I'd been wrong. Maybe I was just letting paranoia get the best of me. But that feeling didn't last long. That nagging voice in the back of my mind wouldn't shut up. Just because I hadn't found anything didn't mean she wasn't cheating. It just meant she was good at covering her tracks. By then, I was getting restless. I needed proof, and I was going to get it. Looking back, I know I did the right thing. But at the time, it was torture. Acting like everything was normal, pretending to be the same loving husband I'd always been, all while waiting for the moment she'd slip up again. A week passed, and on the surface, nothing seemed different. I played my part, smiling when I had to, making conversation, going through the motions. But inside, I was on high alert, watching, waiting, knowing it was only a matter of time. Then, one afternoon, she called me while I was at work. "Hey, babe," she said, her tone light and casual. "Just wanted to let you know I'll be working a little late tonight. It's month end, and we're backed up." I leaned back in my chair, gripping my phone a little tighter. "Oh yeah? How late?" "Not sure. Maybe an hour or 2. I'll text you when I'm on my way home." I forced myself to sound normal. "All right, sounds good. Don't work too hard." We hung up, and I sat there staring at my phone. Something about the way she said it didn't sit right with me. Sure, sometimes she had to stay late, but this time I felt it. My gut was screaming at me. This wasn't about work. I thought back to where I had seen her the week before, on a street she had no reason to be on. That's where she was heading now. I was sure of it. So that afternoon I left work early. I drove straight to that neighborhood, arriving around 4:30, and took a slow drive down the street. Nothing. No sign of her car. I didn't want to make it obvious, so I pulled into the McDonald's by the main intersection and waited, keeping a close eye on the road. Sure enough, at 4:45, there she was. Her car rolled up to the light, then made that same turn down that same street. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I gave it 10 minutes, long enough for her to settle in, then I followed. And there it was, her car, parked neatly in the driveway of one of the houses, right beside a brand new Ram pickup truck. I stared at the house, my heart pounding, my hands clenched into fists, and for a split second, all I wanted to do was get out of my car, march up to that front door, and knock until someone answered. To see her face, to see his face. But something held me back. Instead, I grabbed my phone, took a few pictures of her car sitting in that driveway, and then I drove away. My mind was spinning the whole way home, but one thing was crystal clear. This wasn't a suspicion anymore. This was fact. She was cheating. When I got back, I immediately pulled up the address where she had parked. I needed to know who this guy was. It didn't take long. A quick search gave me his name, and my stomach twisted when I saw the results. He wasn't just some random guy. He was the co-owner of a company that worked with hers. So she wasn't just sneaking around with some stranger. She was sleeping with a client. I kept digging. According to records, he was either 49 or 50, and he'd been living in that house since 2009. A little more research, and I found out he was divorced with 2 kids in college. Perfect. A middle-aged businessman with no wife to answer to, preying on a married woman who clearly didn't care about betraying her husband. That night, she came home all smiles, carrying takeout from my favorite Chinese place. Like that was supposed to distract me. "Hey, babe," she said cheerfully, walking over like everything was fine. She leaned in for a kiss, but I turned my head slightly, giving her a half-hearted air kiss. That wasn't enough for her. She grabbed my chin and pouted. "Oh, come on. Don't be like that," she teased. "Give me a real one." I almost recoiled. There was no way in hell I was putting my lips anywhere near hers after where she'd just been. But I forced myself. I pressed a quick, cold kiss against her lips, then pulled away. We sat down to eat, and I did my best to act normal, but every bite felt like poison. My mind was racing, already planning my next move. "I have to go out to a customer site tomorrow," I said casually. "I'll be gone all day." Her eyes flickered with interest. "Oh yeah? Where to?" "A couple of towns over," I said, keeping it vague. "What time are you leaving?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "Early," I replied. "Probably won't be back until later." I could see the gears turning in her head. She was planning, calculating. She smiled sweetly. "Well, don't grab anything on your way home. I'll have dinner waiting for you." The thought made my stomach churn. Dinner? After she spent the day with him? Cooking for me like some doting wife? It was sickening. But that dinner wasn't happening. Because I had my own plans. The next day, I did exactly what I said I would. Just not in the way she expected. That afternoon, I drove straight to his house. And just like clockwork, there she was. Her car. Parked in the same damn spot right next to his truck. This time, there was no shock. No denial. Just confirmation. I didn't waste a second. I drove home, booked a hotel, and started packing my things. Every shirt I folded, every zipper I pulled shut. It felt like sealing the coffin on this marriage. And you know what? I wasn't even sad. Just done. Once I had everything ready, I grabbed my phone and called her. She answered right away, her voice bright and cheery like nothing was wrong. "Hey babe," she chirped. "What's up?" I clenched my jaw. "What are you doing?" "Oh, just sitting in a conference room, working on a spreadsheet," she said smoothly, like she wasn't lying straight to my face. "Yeah, you were spreading something, all right, but it sure as hell wasn't numbers on a spreadsheet." "You're lying," I said, my voice flat, emotionless. A pause. "What?" "I know where you are. I know who you're with. And I know exactly what you're doing." My tone was calm, but there was an icy edge to it. "You're either screwing him right now or you just finished. Just like yesterday. Just like last week." Silence. She didn't even try to deny it. Not a single no, I swear it's not like that. Not one pathetic attempt to explain. Nothing. "I'm done with you," I continued, my voice steady. "And I won't be home when you get there." Still no response. Just silence. I let it sink in for a moment, then let loose. Said every word I had been holding back for way too long. Then, without waiting for a reaction, I hung up. I exhaled and sat back. And then I waited. 20 minutes passed before my phone started lighting up. Calls, texts, over and over again. She was in full-blown panic mode now. And I knew exactly why it took her 20 minutes to start. Because the second I hung up, she must have turned to him, eyes wide, panic setting in. Oh my God, my husband knows. For the last 20 minutes, she had been scrambling, thinking, freaking out, trying to come up with a way to save herself. And now she was ready to talk. For the next 24 hours, my phone never stopped buzzing. She must have left 50 voicemails and fired off over 100 texts. I probably should have blocked her, but part of me wanted to see just how desperate she'd get. At first, the messages were full of denial. "It's not what it looks like. I can explain." As if there was any explanation that could make this okay. As if I hadn't seen her car parked in that driveway twice. When I ignored her, the tone shifted. The denial faded. The pleading began. "I'm so sorry, Daniel. Please just talk to me." Then came the full-on hysteria. Hours upon hours of voicemails, her sobbing, begging me to listen, to forgive. Isn't that always how it goes? They don't care when they're sneaking around. But the second they get caught, they fall apart. That night, after checking into the hotel, I stopped by the bar for a drink. Something to take the edge off. I hadn't eaten much, so the alcohol hit fast, numbing the rage just enough. When I got back to my room, I did what needed to be done. I called our parents, and I laid everything out. The alcohol had loosened me up, so I didn't sugarcoat a damn thing. I told them everything, every disgusting detail. My mom gasped. "Daniel, no. She wouldn't." "She did." My voice was flat. "She's been screwing some guy in his 50s. A client of her company. I caught her." Silence. Then my dad, always the calm one, cleared his throat. "Son, are you sure?" I let out a bitter laugh. "Dad, I saw her car at his house. Twice. She sat inside that house, lying straight to my face while she was with him. When I confronted her, she didn't even bother to deny it." "What else do you need?" My mom's voice cracked. "I thought you two were happy." I stared up at the ceiling, feeling nothing. Yeah, so did I. They were stunned, horrified. Just like me, they had believed we had a solid marriage. But that was just an illusion, wasn't it? For months, I lived in hotels while dealing with the divorce. I cut off all contact with her, no calls, no messages. Only my parents knew where I was. I didn't trust anyone else not to tell her. Everyone was on my side, except, of course, her closest friends. Even my own friends and family, though, kept saying the same thing. "You should at least hear her out. Let her explain. Give her a chance to apologize in person." Through mutual friends, I heard she wasn't handling things well. No shock there. She went from sneaking around behind my back to full-blown panic the second she realized I wasn't coming back. But instead of letting her deal with the consequences of her actions, her friends decided to make it my problem. At first, it was just pressure. Pleading texts, long-winded voicemails from people I barely knew, all saying the same thing. "Daniel, just talk to her. She's not doing well." Then her older sister jumped in. That's when things got ugly. One evening, my phone rang, and I answered without thinking. "Big mistake. Daniel, what the hell is wrong with you?" Her sister's voice was sharp, angry. "She's falling apart, and you don't even care?" I closed my eyes, already exhausted. This isn't my problem. She's not eating. She's not sleeping. God, Daniel, she loved you. She made a mistake, and you're just throwing everything away like it meant nothing? I clenched my jaw. It did mean something. That's why I'm not tolerating it. She threw it away the second she climbed into bed with someone else. Her sister scoffed. "So you're just gonna ignore her? What if something happens to her? What if she hesitated, then spat it out. "If she does something drastic, that's on you." That was it. That was the line. I took a slow breath. "Let me be very clear," I said, my voice deadly calm. "Her choices are not my responsibility. She made this mess, not me. And if you or anyone else tries to guilt me into taking her back, you can forget my number." Then I hung up, blocked her. The next day, I found out she and her friends had been trashing me to anyone who would listen, painting me as some heartless monster. And then came the real gut punch. Her parents turned on me, too. That one hurt. We had always been close. Her dad and I used to grab beers together. Her mom had told me 100 times I was like the son they never had. I thought they cared about me like family. But in the end, blood was thicker than an 8-year marriage. Her mom called me, disappointment thick in her voice. "Daniel, can't you just talk to her?" "No," I said simply. She sighed. You were like a son to us. And now you're just giving up. I let out a bitter laugh. Giving up? She's the one who cheated. Remember, she made a mistake. Her mom insisted. People work through these things all the time. Well, I'm not one of those people. That was the last conversation I ever had with them. They made their choice. I made mine. Thankfully, my own family and true friends stood by me. They reminded me that I wasn't crazy, that I did the right thing, no matter how hard her side tried to guilt-trip me. I stayed no contact, let my attorney handle everything. She fought the divorce hard, offering anything to stay married. But I was done. And when she finally realized there was no saving this, she signed the papers. After that, it all moved quickly. Last month, it was finalized. Clean break. No lingering ties. I won't pretend I was some tough guy through all of it. 8 years is a long time. There were plenty of sleepless nights. Plenty of moments where the weight of it all nearly crushed me. But I got through it. And now, I'm free. That should have been the end of it. But she still thinks there's hope. She keeps saying fate will bring us back together, just like it brought us together in the first place. I can say with absolute certainty that will never happen. She still texts me 3 or 4 times a week, giving me updates on her life, telling me how much she misses me, and apologizing over and over again. I should have blocked her by now, but to be honest, I kind of enjoy knowing how miserable she is. Maybe that makes me petty, but after everything she put me through, I think I've earned a little satisfaction. Call it a small dose of schadenfreude. As for her drill partner, well, I can't get into too many details just yet. Let's just say my attorney and his attorney have been having some interesting discussions. I'll leave it at that. You can probably guess the rest. Now, get this. She told me he meant nothing to her, that she cut all ties with him. But you know what? I don't care. It doesn't matter if he was just a meaningless fling or the supposed love of her life. The fact remains. She betrayed me, and there's no coming back from that. 7 months later, her little fling cost him $200,000. That's how much he had to hand over to me to settle things. I took the money. No point dragging things out when I had already won in every way that mattered. I was free of a cheating wife. And even better, I got paid for it. Some people might call it hush money. I call it compensation for wasted years. A few weeks ago, I got a call from an unknown number. I usually don't answer those. But for some reason, I picked up. Daniel, it's Margaret. Her mother's voice. Shaky. Hesitant. For a second, I considered hanging up. But I didn't. I waited. I already knew why she was calling. She collapsed at home. They found her on the floor. A pause. She wasn't eating. Wasn't sleeping. The doctors say it's severe depression. They put her in a rehab facility. I didn't respond. What was I supposed to say? That I felt sorry for her? That I'd come rushing back to fix the disaster she created? Margaret sniffled. Daniel, please. If you'd just talk to her. No. My voice was firm. Cold. She's not my problem anymore. She's sick, Daniel. She needs help. I cut her off. She should have thought about that before she spread her legs for another man. I owe her nothing. Silence. Then, in a quiet, broken voice, Margaret whispered, She still loves you. I let out a bitter laugh. Yeah? She loved me so much she slept with another man in the middle of the day. I exhaled sharply. No, Margaret. She didn't love me. She loved the life I gave her. The stability. The comfort. I shook my head. If she really loved me, she wouldn't have thrown everything away. Daniel, please, don't call me again. And I hung up. At that moment, I realized something. As long as I stayed in the city, they would never stop coming after me. So I left. With the money I got from him, I bought a small farm out in the countryside. Far from the noise, the people, and the memories. A fresh start. I got a few animals, chickens, goats, even a couple of horses. Traded in the stress of corporate life for the peace of wide-open fields and early morning sunrises. No more meetings. No more deadlines. No more dealing with people I couldn't stand. Out here, it's just me, the land, and the animals. I wake up with the sun, work with my hands, and breathe in the fresh air. And for the first time in a long, long time, I feel good. Not just emotionally, but physically, mentally, completely. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like.